For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates. This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh, Revi, and our guest today is eminent historian, Tibetologist and sinologist Claude Arpi. Arpi, thank you so much for giving us time again when you're in Delhi. I know it's been very hectic for you. You've had another hectic trip to Arunachal Pradesh, close to the LAC. I think after a year?
Yes, but before I was just in Tawang in 2022, but this time I went much closer to the LAC.
So just wanted to get your overall impressions, Claude, about the change in infrastructure, both benefiting civilians and the military.
I think I was very impressed. I mean, I went first in 1996 to Tawang, and that was really an experience. The road was very, very bad. Now you have a very beautiful road. Even last year, when you, after Sela Pass, and there's a village called Jang, and there was 10 kilometer very, very, very bad. Now everything has been finished, and hopefully in a few weeks' time, in the beginning of October, the Sela tunnel also will be open. And so it will really change drastically for the civilian population as well as for the army. So that's I feel it's very good for both.
In fact, as you're pointing out, the Raksha Mantri inaugurated 90 different projects in 8 border states and UTs, including the smaller Nechipur tunnel, which is something that on the way you would have passed. We went through it, and the Sela tunnel. We shot there extensively in March, I think. But just looking at, again, before and after, in terms of your impressions of India's military preparedness, tactics, strategy, how they have changed over the years.
I think there is no comparison. And even the last 4 or 5 years, there's a tremendously change in terms of infrastructure. Of course, it brings tourism. Of course, there's a danger for the environment, as we have seen in Arunachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, but it's something necessary for the defense of the country. And it's especially necessary because Chinese have been in 3 places very aggressive, and we have seen it in December 2022 in Yangtse sector. So relatively, the Zemintang sector is much more peaceful. There's not been big clash since 86, 87 in Samrongshu, but there's always a danger. And that is really the 2-3 places where China could do some mischief. And they have tried in December 2022, and they were sent back. That was
in 2021, again December 2022 in Yangtse area. As you pointed out, Tawang, you went to Chumi Gyatse, the Holy Waterfalls, which we extensively filmed also in March. Again, what do you carry back from the significance of the area, both in terms of the Indian military having occupied those places and the heights there, and hence being able to push back whenever the Chinese tried, and the Tibetan religious significance of the area, even for Tibetans who are not in India?
I think it was a good move from the government of Arunachal Pradesh to open the Chumi Gyatse to the tourism. It is said that in 7th century, Guru Padmasambhava went to that place, and he threw his mala with 108 beads on the mountain, and 108 spring came. But that place is so beautiful and also so charged spiritually. And it's unfortunate there was a clash. But when I went, actually, I saw that I would have to walk 1.5 kilometers. It's what I was told. And maybe when you went there, it's what happened. But now the road is not a good road as yet, but it goes to 300 meters from the Holy Waterfalls. And the entire road from Tawang to this place, Chumi Gyatse, is under construction, but it's already a descent road. But I think if I go back after 2-3 years, and I will have a really packer road, because you can see that the BR are working very hard. And you can see the ladies. I was told by some officer that the lady of Arunachal are really remarkable and do very hard working, and that's quite encouraging. That they are somehow participating to the defense of the country.
Participating, and we were told again about the Arunachali women who would be able to pick up loads when you're talking about construction or road building or bridge building, double the amount that the men could. With that apart, just your ideas about Yangtze and why China was trying to ingress or make an incursion there, the significance of India holding those heights.
As I don't know if China is an atheist country, so I don't know if they understand the meaning of that place blessed by Guru Padmasambhava. But I think historically, if you look at the map of 1960-61, there was 3 disputed places. One is Kenzimane Tamdongchu, where there was a big clash in 86-87. One is Yangtze sector. And third one was Longzhou. Now Longzhou is more or less settled in the sense that India has a last port in one place called Maja, which is slightly south of the disputed village of Longzhou. But so there's only 2 remaining where there could be clashes, because so far they have not opened a new spot for entering into India. Of course, all these places, sometimes the ridge is not very clear, or there's 2-3 different ridges, so it has to be decided where is the LAC. So, but now that it has been fixed in Yangtze sector, I think India is prepared. I don't think China can enter much. Even if they try for 500 meters or 1 kilometer, they will be repelled, so they will be sent back. So that was the feeling I had, that ultimately, and China, I think, start understanding that 62 is over, and now it's a new era, and they can't do much mischief in this area. It's very limited what they could do, and they know that because it's question of determination, and the Indian army is determined, the defense forces are determined, and nothing much can happen. And they can say their propaganda, they will repeat 62, but they have absolutely no chance.
You're echoing what many military analysts and ex-servicemen have said, that 1962 cannot happen in the present age. One of the major differences is the role that the Indian Air Force didn't play actually in 1962, and what it can and will, if necessary, do now.
Absolutely. The Indian Air Force was used just for supply. And if you look at the Battle of Namkachu, most of the dropping zone was on the Nadar plateau. And more than half of the whatever was sand went in the ravine, and they couldn't get. So, but it was not used to stop the Chinese. They could have easily bombarded. A few years back, I interviewed Wing Commander Jagmohan Nath, who got twice MVC with VAR. And the first MVC he got in between 1960 and 62 for doing the recce with a Squadron 106 all over Tibet. And he knew that there was no Air Force. And the political leadership knew there was no Air Force. But they didn't reject. And Krishna Menon, the defense minister, believed that the northern city of India, Calcutta, Delhi, would be bombarded by the Chinese Air Force, who was not existing, for the simple reason that they had no more spare parts from the Soviet. They had a split with the Soviet in 1960, and they had no fuel to. So there was no Chinese Air Force, and Indian Air Force, if they had helped the ground forces, the Battle of Wolong, the Battle of Bomdela, or in Rezangla in Ladakh, could have been very, very, very different. And at the end of the day, India may have won the war. And you imagine for the Indian psyche, that war has been so traumatic, it has remained. But that's, you can't redo the history, but history will not repeat. I hope, and I'm sure that leadership has understood that, and Air Force would be used. And also it's question of determination and will to fight. And actually it's something I saw when I went close to the LAC. I realized that that Tagla Ridge, which is the IB for India, the Namkachu, the river, the small, it's not a river, because for me it was a myth. I've read so many books and documents, historical documents on Namkachu. It's a tiny nala in the middle of two ridges. One you have the Tagla Ridge, and the other side the Atungla. And to have ordered the Indian army to defend their position from the bottom of the Nala, there's 5-6 bridges on that Namkachu. That was, in my view, criminal. Historically, when I think about it, it was criminal. They should have defended from Atungla or other ridges. So it's why you realize when you see this, it's unbelievable to ask. And I think the corps commander at that time was the culprit. And he should have told his political boss in Delhi, we can't defend. It's not. I think he realized that when he came back to Delhi, he didn't tell anybody. And some people think that even the brigade commander and div commander should have at that time also put their foot down. That's very difficult against the political will. But today everything is different. I think the officers, they know their job and they will tell the leadership that it's not possible. But it's what is striking when you go there. It's striking.
Since you're talking about 1962 and you are a historian, mentioning the Indian Air Force as well, what have you learned so far? There's so little known about Squadron Leader Sehgal.
It has bothered me very much that Squadron Leader Vinod Sehgal was the only casualty from the Indian Air Force in 1962. And just 2 days before the war started, on October 18, he went on that plateau that Sangdar, where was also the dropping zone, where the 17 Para regiment was posted there, and he dropped the CO from Tezpur, and nothing happened. He came back 2 days later because they had no news. At that time, all the communication were cut because they had no acid. Some of the Chinese had managed to get hold of the acid and throw it in the river, so the batteries were not working and there was no communication. So on the morning, the Chinese attack, he landed on Sangdar Plateau at around 9:30. And after that, we don't know what has happened, but we have seen a video from the Chinese archive showing that chopper in good state. But when you go at such a high altitude, normally you never switch off. You just take off immediately without switching off because it's very difficult to start. Now, some of the troops of the 17 Para say that there was 2 casualties and they have been buried. But in fact, we have never found. And I checked all the Chinese also records. There's 4 or 5 records of the 62 war. And they speak about his passenger, Major Ram Singh, but they never say a word. And in the Chinese record, they say that one helicopter was captured. They use the word capture. And now we don't know, that helicopter was no more there. There was recce from the Air Force in the following days. That helicopter has disappeared. So nobody knows the fate of Vinod Sehgal. He was just missing in action for his family. And though his wife lived in Delhi for many years, and she always said, my husband is not dead, my husband is not dead. And a chopper has disappeared. So what has happened with the chopper? I've checked with many people who have been posted around. There is no... So I think that chopper is one possibility, that chopper was taken to Tibet, and somehow they managed to take off. And
take off or by maybe
50,
by road?
20 kilometers.
Could they have gone by road instead of taking off? Could it have been transferred?
That was my first contention, that I thought, okay, they have dismantled, because in the past China is very good at dismantling things. But you have to see the terrain. And when I saw the terrain, that is not possible. You can't carry, even if you, bell chopper, maybe 800 or 900 kilos, even if you cut it in 10 parts or 20 parts, you can't cut everything in a chopper. But even if you cut it, the terrain is so difficult you can't carry it. So at that time, along the main river, the Namkachu goes in Namjiangshu, another river which goes to Tibet, and comes from Tibet. So there's a small bridge called Dokung Sambai, and it was guarded by the Assam Rifle. Of course, they were smashed by the Chinese on the first day, but you can't carry a chopper on this. It's very shaky.
So the contention is that somehow the chopper was flown into Tibet, and
it's what I have after many years of research. I'm ready to, if I'm proved wrong, I'm ready to say, okay, I'll be very happy. But my contention today is that chopper was flown to Tibet, and probably with Vinod Sehgal was forced to go to Tibet. What has happened, we don't know. Because also another factor that I went to study in Switzerland, in Geneva, in the archive of the Red Cross, International Red Cross. And I found a telegram saying that Vinod Sehgal is alive with Brigadier John Dalby and another officer, Lieutenant Colonel K.K. Tiwari, 3 officers. K.K. Tiwari happened to be my father-in-law. But they say these 3 officers are alive. It was around 7th of November, means 13 days after the beginning of the operations. So, and after that, there's no news. Nobody know about this. His family never been able to. His family always believed he was alive.
So the possibility you're suggesting or hinting at is that the Chinese could have taken the helicopter there to reverse engineer, and hence there is no news about...
Study at least. I don't know if they were...
Hence there's no news about Squadron Leader Sehgal. Is there a connection?
No news about?
About Squadron Leader Sehgal, because they were
it's possible then something happened when he was... If I'm right that he was taken to Tibet, chopper could have been taken only 20 kilometers north of the border, and at that time there was a road that they could have put it in a truck or something like that, which was much more easier than to carry to some places. And something may have happened to when he was in captivity. That is one possibility. I think India, when there's a BPM, when there's a border meeting with China, they should ask. Maybe China will not say what has happened, but it should be asked officially. Any news, what has happened? Because they are only one who know. I mean, it must be somewhere in the Chinese record. But I think I wanted to pay homage to that. It was a quite remarkable pilot, and he lost his life.
And since you're talking about the border meetings, personal meetings, the larger picture, Claude, in terms of, in the recent past, there's been a lot of media reporting, public sentiment, suggesting that there would be some cooling down temperatures between India and China. There were signs that were being read, that talks were going on, major generals were meeting post what was scheduled, that Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi had a conversation in November in Bali during the G20. They had a conversation which was acknowledged in 2 statements by both sides at the BRICS summit. There was some hope that maybe something would happen so that Xi Jinping would come for the G20 summit in Delhi. What is your overall reading of the India-China border issue?
I think India-China border issue, or I call it Tibet border, but not the Chinese border. But anyway, that today we have to deal with China. It depends very much also on the internal situation in China. Can you imagine a country where the Ministry of Foreign Affairs disappears now 2.5 months? Recently, last week, the Defense Minister disappears. The rocket force, which is a very strategic force, which are responsible for the nuclear weapons, the top commander disappeared. So China is in a turmoil. And in this condition, I think it's very difficult for Mr. Xi Jinping to agree to withdraw. Because if they, suppose they would come back to the status quo before May 2020, internally it would be seen that like a defeat, because officially they've always said that they've never entered India's territory in Depsang or in Depsang. The other issue on the fingers and Kodra, Hot Spring and all are solved more or less. So now for the first time maybe LAC has been demarcated on maps, but it's not the case for Depsang and Depsang. And I think China was surprised by the very strong position of the Indian External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, who said very clearly time and again, it will not be normal relation as long that issue is not sorted out. But can they, I don't think today China is in a position to accept to let the patrolling start again in Depsang or in Demchok area, because he would have too many problems. He has already too many problems inside China with his own people. And India benefited somehow because instead of Mr. Wang Yi, except the premier, Li Qiang came to Delhi. He's not that knowledgeable about foreign affairs because his expertise is more economic affairs. But it was good because China agreed to a declaration, which, and I'm sure that President Xi Jinping or Mr. Wang Yi had come, it may have not been possible. Which ultimately is such a good thing that there was that declaration that, because it's. I'm telling you that it's only country in India where such a declaration could have been agreed to by. If it had been in France or in America or anywhere else, nobody would have managed to bring all party to agree a declaration. But partly because also China has its own internal problem. It's my views about them.
One of the reasons why India-China relations went down south was, or one of the factors was the Dalai Lama's escape into India. You've been to that area again this time. Give us your impressions or any memories that you can share with us.
It's Dalai Lama cross in this area in Tutangmo, and there's a small plate where it's mentioned is he passed because it was the first post of the Assam Rifle at that time. And I'm sure it's not only symbolic that the war started close by, a couple of kilometers on the Namkachu is just very, very close to the place where he crossed. So, and if you look historically also, the first big clashes took place just after, soon after the Dalai Lama crossed. He crossed on 31st March of 1959, and the largest clash was in Longju on August 25th, 1959. And also clashes in the Spangok Gap in East Ladakh. So that they are obviously related to the India giving refuge and welcoming. The Prime Minister Nehru sent a message to the Dalai Lama via the political officer in Bumdela, welcoming the Dalai Lama in India and welcoming his people. And then the first few months, 12,000 Tibetans took refuge in India, and later on many, many more. But I think China was very upset about that. And if the tone of the correspondence in the white paper between MEA and Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs changed completely, and it became very, very aggressive, and it included the big clash in Longju.
Recent developments, repeated Chinese renaming, if I can call it, or using pinyin to name places in India, Arunachal Pradesh. They've started now, there was a seminar in which many Chinese scholars started promoting, calling Tibet Xinjiang. And you had that map which is released annually. What do you see in the larger picture there, Claude?
This map is not new as far as India is concerned, because they have been claiming Aisashin as well as Arunachal before they were claiming Nifa. If China is changing the name of Tibet in Xizang, they are acting like a political power. But more importantly, I think they have not changed only with the name of the country. They have changed thousands and thousands of names, and got hold of a dictionary which shows the Tibetan name, original Tibetan name, and the new name of the Chinese. So they have changed it everywhere on the plateau. I think India should start using the Tibetan name, and because it's the original name, and they transcribe it as it is pronounced or as it was used in Tibet. Why to call Chigatse, the second town, Rikatse? Why to call Nari, the Western Tibet, Hali? So that way it's on the all over the plateau, but the name of the country even now has been changed. So it's up to the Tibetan and the government of India not to use these names.
Overall, so then if you want to encapsulate your thoughts, Claude, in terms of China's internal issues, external issues, what do you expect from China going forward now? More aggression or...
Forward or backward? I don't know. I think there's a danger of to become more aggressive. First in Taiwan, we see every day their aggressivity, the number of ships and flight and crossing the medium line. But there's a danger if there's a political turmoil in China, and there is a political turmoil because if the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Defense Minister disappears, that shows that there's a turmoil. There's a danger that the faction, with the more hardcore faction, will take over and want to create problems for India also, as well as in Taiwan. So that is a big danger. India has to be ready. And I think what I've seen, and what I've seen also in Ladakh earlier, last year, Indian Army and Air Force are much more ready. And especially Air Force is ready that they couldn't participate in 1962, but it will not be the same. So China, I think, knows that, but, some foolish local commander can do some mischief. Like in 2014 in Shomar, the Chinese president comes, go to Ahmedabad, and the same day 1,500 PLA enter in Indian territory. So, and I don't think the president knew about it. I'm sure that he did. I know that he didn't know about it. And so, how much control has today President Xi Jinping over his commander? That is a big question that we'll see in the next few months.
Claude Arpi, again, thank you so much for your time and sharing your experiences and your expertise with us.
Thank you.
And for our viewers to send in your feedback to this interview, you can follow our social media handles for the latest articles we put up on our website, or interviews like this with Claude Arpi on our YouTube channel. There's also a UPI QR code on the screen if you are intending to support us financially. This is StratNews Global. I'm Amitabh Revi.